Good afternoon, everyone. The title of my speech today is Surviving with Our Humanity Intact. There was once a young man by the name of Christopher McCandless, and he wanted to push survival to the extreme. And so he took himself off to Alaska, the wilderness in Alaska, and he tried to survive there by himself. Unfortunately, the story ends in tragedy. And so I wanted to ask us today, how can we avoid the same fate? After all, there is currently a truckload of catastrophes heading towards us. Sorry, I'm a teacher. There is currently a truckload of growth opportunities heading towards us, with the inevitability of death and taxes. Sorry, I have begun this speech on a fairly gloomy note. I had heard that TEDx was about ideas worth spreading. Well, maybe starting off by spreading gloom and despondency was not going to win, was not the recipe for success. I will begin again. Does anyone know what chaos is? It is unpredictability within a repeating pattern. The picture behind me is of a mathematical plot known as the Lorentz attractor. The exact shape depends upon where you start, but the overall pattern never changes. The owl's empty eye sockets gazing out at you. Spooky, isn't it? Life is unpredictable, unwritten, and yet, as with the Lorentz attractor, we know the overall patterns. We're born, we grow up, unfortunately we have to go to school, unfortunately we have to get a job, but as the details get more unique and more specific, our ability to make predictions fails. What will the traffic be like on Tarragong Raya tomorrow morning at 11 a.m. exactly? I wish I knew. Will Bitcoin go up or down in the next 24 hours? Despite what the investment club may tell you, they have no clue either. But we wish we knew. The details of the story are hidden from us. So how can we best prepare ourselves for those catastrophes, those growth opportunities? What we need is a survival phenotype for this chaos. What I mean by that is a strategy or set of tools that we can use to maximize the chances of our flourishing despite this unpredictable world. So what phenotypes do we possess that will enable us to survive? For that matter, what should we carry with us that will make survival worthwhile? My central idea this afternoon is that the answer to those two questions are one and the same thing. The thinker, author, and what else was he? He was an activist. The thinker, author, and activist Paul Kingsnorth, in his recent book, Against the Machine, lists 4 fundamental human values: the past, people, place, and prayer. He says that these 4 values prop up our common humanity. They prop up our moral economy. I want to list 2 examples today. These 2 examples are of survival against unimaginable odds. And I want to demonstrate how I want them to demonstrate the survival phenotype of the 4 Ps. First, there they are, the 4 Ps. We'll come back to them, so you'll see them again. First, this rat-like animal is an ancestor of yours. It lived in the time of the dinosaurs. Until about 66 million years ago, there was an asteroid which crashed into the Gulf of Mexico, as it's called at the moment. I think it's been rebranded recently. But anyway, for our purposes, it's the Gulf of Mexico, and destroyed the prehistoric world in a cataclysm of fire and ice. David Attenborough, in his wonderful documentary, The Life of Mammals, refers to these omnivores as the opportunists. They take advantage of their varied diet and other characteristics to maximize the chances of success in their primary goal, to survive. Sorry, I'm a science teacher. I watch lots of David Attenborough. Sometimes I get carried away. So that's my first example, and we'll explore him later on. My second example is of this film, this wonderful film, Slumdog Millionaire. It has such a sense of hope and humanity against such a dark backdrop that is the central character's life. Jamal is born into poverty in Mumbai, and to say that the odds are stacked against him is an understatement. And yet by holding on to hope and a connection with his past, he is able to emerge victorious. And in the film's climactic ending is on the stage of the game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire? But make no mistake, it is a harrowing tale. So, back to King's North and his 4 Ps. Firstly, the past. Survival is defined by the tools that you possess before the disaster, not the tools you plan to build afterwards. Our ratty ancestor survived not because it started adapting after the asteroid hit, but because of what it already had, its phenotype. It was omnivorous, it could dig, it could thermoregulate its body temperature, it lived in communal burrows, and it could hibernate. Now let's turn to an analogous story. Our boy from Mumbai, Jamal. How does he emerge victorious? As the story unfolds, it turns out that the unique details of his life positioned him to be able to answer every question posed by that dragon of a game show host, Prem Kumar. All the knowledge he needed to win, he had inherited from his past experiences. And so we sit here facing our dragons, our growth opportunities, if you want to think of it that way, in the form of AI, the climate change, ecological collapse, and the rise of authoritarianism. We are armed with raw material in the form of stories passed on to us by our ancestors. What could be so valuable about that raw material? Well, the fiction author Terry Pratchett got it right in misquoting another author, G.K. Chesterton, and he said, "The objection to fairy tales is often that they tell children dragons are real. But children know that dragons are real. Fairy stories tell children that dragons can be killed. Our cultural heritage doesn't just tell us how to kill dragons. That's our story to write. Instead, it enables us to believe that they can be killed, and that knowledge is priceless. Without it, we are left naked and afraid, facing the endless catastrophe of the modern age." This is getting gloomy. I promise you it ends on a high note. Stick with me. We'll get there. We'll get there. Okay. Place. Our rat-like ancestor faced challenges that were defined by the place in which it lived, the presence of fires and floods, and the lack of food. But its place also defined the raw materials for the solutions that it needed in those times of crisis. Trees to climb in order to escape flood, earth to dig into when it needed shelter. On the other hand, McCandless took himself off to an environment to which he was not adapted, with gaps in his knowledge. He didn't know why he was getting sicker and sicker every day. He didn't know which food was edible and which was killing him. How could he? Alaska was not his place. A place carries a greater sense of meaning the longer we inhabit it. We make associations with it, and we form memories around it. And we find the inspiration to defeat our dragons in that place, but we need to know it, we need to pay attention to it, and we need to care for it, which is something we are not doing enough of today. People. Without community, is it possible to survive? Peer-reviewed research as recently as 2021, demonstrates that our mammalian ancestors lived in these multi-generational burrows. Granny rat, cousin rat, uncle rat, baby rat. Sounds cozy. Anyway, this allowed for shared body heat and something called alloparenting. This is where parenting is shared, it becomes a shared task. When every calorie of energy matters during those harsh winter months, you can see that sharing heat and distributing that energy-demanding task that is parenting, and yes, it is an energy-demanding task, only some of you here know that, will provide a huge evolutionary advantage. And anyway, without community, what is the point of surviving as a human in the first place? Back to McCandless. The tragedy of his story is that if he had just connected to the community in which he was in, if he had brought a radio, if he was slightly less proud of surviving by himself, he could have lived. But he kept a diary, and in his last days, he did write, "Happiness is only real when shared." The message is clear. Without each other, there is no humanity. Without each other, we cannot survive. And the last on King's North list is prayer. He defines this as where a culture is going, or its god, or gods. What holds the position of ultimate value in a culture? There you will find its prayer. McCandless's God was his self-sufficiency. It was his ultimate value. He would not deviate from his commitment to live alone in the wilderness. And our humble rat, well, his sole goal was food, shelter, and family, and ultimately, it would not deviate from its commitment to survive. And our hero, the slumdog, Jamal, he had one unshakable goal, and that was to be reunited with his love, Latika. So he is so focused on that one purpose that he goes in almost ritualistic fashion every day at 5 p.m. to Victoria Station in Mumbai, because he knows that she may be there. He also only tries to get on to the game show Who Wants to Be a Millionaire, not to win the money, but because he knows she watches it religiously. And so, remaining true to his ultimate value led him to a survival that was worthwhile. So, in the spirit of optimism, we'll get there, I promise. I leave you with one more story, Frankenstein, also known as the modern Prometheus. Prometheus was a titan who, in Greek myth, stole fire from the gods, and he gave it to man. And he was punished for this by Zeus. So he's often used as a symbol of daring creativity, but he's also used as a symbol for the consequences of this. Frankenstein was originally written by Mary Shelley and has subsequently been adapted for Netflix. In it, the anti-hero scientist Victor Frankenstein creates this terrible being, this monster with unrivaled strength. Acting out of fear, Frankenstein cruelly rejects his creation, leaving it alone, seeking a partner, seeking an identity. And it has one sole unflinching commitment, and that is to revenge itself upon Victor Frankenstein, chasing him from place to place until the no place that is the North Pole. Frankenstein created an artificial human, but by failing to treat his creation with humanity and the people around him with humanity, he dooms the story to tragedy. While technology will always be part of our future, we must not be hypnotized by its Promethean promise. Ultimately, we will be saved by the values that we already possess, not by the technologies of the future. To write ourselves into a worthwhile future, let us nurture our cultural heritage, the past, our communities, our people, and our environment, our place. And when we meditate on what that doesn't work. and we must meditate on what we should hold in our position of ultimate value. Thank you very much.